So you have learned how to sort objects by implementing the comparable interface. Now, this implementation is not very flexible because it's always comparing customers by their name. What if tomorrow we introduce new fields like email, address, and so on? We're not going to be able to sort our customers by their email or by their address. That's where the comparator interface comes to the rescue. This interface is very similar to the comparable interface, so it's a generic interface, and here we specify the type of objects that should be compared with each other. So we can create a new class called email comparator that compares two customers by their email. Let me show you. First, I'm going to introduce a new field here, private string email. Now let's initialize this through the constructor. So we press Alt and Enter and add a constructor parameter. Let's click on refactor. There you go. Now we can initialize the email via the constructor. Of course, our main method has broken because IntelliJ didn't know what to pass for these emails. Let's quickly supply a few values like E3, E2, and E1. Now to compare customers by their email, we're going to create a class that implements the comparator interface. So in this package, I'm going to add a new class. Let's call this email comparator. Here we should type implement comparator of customer. Let's import the type and then implement this interface. Now, as you can see, this interface has quite a few methods, but all of these except the compare method have a default implementation, so we don't have to worry about them. Now let's implement this method. So this method takes two customer objects and returns an integer. The logic we're going to write here is exactly like the logic we wrote when implementing the comparable interface. So if the first object is smaller than the second object, we're going to return a negative value. If it's greater, we're going to return a positive value. And if they're equal, we're going to return 0. Now, here I'm going to get the email of the first customer. Now, because this is a private field, we cannot access it here. So we have to go back to our customer class and create a getter for that field. So over here, I put the caret on the field name and press Alt and Enter. Let's create a getter and a setter for the email field. That's pretty easy. Now we have this getter, get email. So back to our email comparator. We get the email of the first customer. This returns a string. Now, you know that strings are comparable. So here we can call the compare2 method and pass the email of the second customer. So O2, that get email. And then we return the result. As simple as that. Now, back to our main method. When calling the sort method, we can pass a comparator object. So this sort method has two overloads, one that takes a list and the other that takes a list along with the comparator. So I'm going to use the second overload, and here we pass our email comparator. Now, when we run this program, we're going to see the customer with the name C first, because its email is going to come first. Then we're going to see the customer with the name A, and finally the customer with the name B. Take a look. So we got C, A, and B. So this is how we can use the comparator interface.